What's going on, everybody? Welcome in to Blazers Uprise Live here on a Sunday morning. A pivotal Sunday morning for your Portland Trail Blazers as they extend head coach Chauncey Billups for essentially 3 more years. Billups, in his 4th year this season, wins 35 games, had a team option for next season. Not only has that team option been picked up, the Blazers also give him an additional 2 seasons beyond that, extending Billups through the 2027-2028 NBA season. Billups, of course, has not won that many games here in Portland, but winning 35 games, maybe even 36 games this season earns you an extension. I'm going to give my thoughts. We're also going to take your calls, especially if you disagree with me and think that this extension is good. I've been on the record saying that the Blazers should replace Chauncey Billups. I think giving him an extension is absolutely insane. But we'll take your calls through our Discord server. I think Eric's going to call in at some point. He's not going to be joining the show, but we'll get his thoughts, hopefully. I see him in the call-in. But first, what we have to do is we have to pick games. We have 15 NBA games to pick. We're going to start off with the first 7 that are tipping off in about 5 minutes. We're going to try and get through them as fast as we can. And then we're going to talk about Chauncey for about an hour or 2. Then we'll pick the final 8 games and do double downs, all that good stuff. I definitely want to dedicate this stream as much as possible to Chauncey Billups' extension. But we got to jump into picks against the spread. We'll pick these first 7 games. If you're watching back after, you can skip past the part with all the graphics. If you're joining us, you can vote in the chat poll. It's a lot of fun. I think it's a lot of fun. I enjoy this every year. So let's take a look at the picks against the spread standings as we enter the final day of picks. Javon has a half-game lead on chat. $200 on the line. If Javon wins, that's $200 in his pocket. If chat wins, that's $200 in giveaways next season. We got Trevin, Zach. Still have a chance to win this thing. It would be cool to see Zach win it. It would be cool to see Trevin with it. They've been doing picks against the spread with us for many years now. They're 5 and 6.5 games back. Collectively, we're getting closer to 500. It's going to be tough to reach it today, but 15 games, maybe it is possible to do so. And now let's jump into the first of the 7 games that we're going to pick right now. We got the Orlando Magic. They are, let's see here, 2.5-point road favorites against the Atlanta Hawks. All right. Sorry, let me just get situated. You guys feel free to vent about Chauncey in the chat, man. I know a lot of you have some very strong opinions, a lot of opinions that I agree with. So feel free to vent. We're going to pick these games. Injuries for this game, by the way. Out for the Magic, Mo Wagner, Jalen Suggs, Franz Wagner, Paulo Banchero, and Corey Joseph. Out for the Hawks, Larry Nance Jr., Jalen Johnson, Kobe Buffkin, Clint Capella, Onyeka Okongwu, Dyson Daniels, Trae Young, George Niang, and Karis LeVert. To be honest with you, no other teams wanted this guy. That's funny. Apparently other teams might have, though, which is the craziest thing to me. It's absolutely the craziest thing to me. I'm going to go Hawks. This is a play-in preview, by the way. Or no. Is it? Yeah, it's a play-in preview. Orlando got the 7. Atlanta got the 8. So these teams aren't going to want to show much. Javon goes Magic. Do we have somebody to plug picks into chat? Do we not have Aeromancer to plug picks into chat? Because that would be a lifesaver. We got Brendan. What's up, Brendan? Brendan going Magic. Arrow said he'd be in chat. Well, I don't see him. I do not see him. Which is kind of bad, because we don't have Eric. And if we don't have Arrow, we got Connor going Magic. Somebody tag Arrow, please. I'm kind of surprised Chauncey wants to come back, to be honest, especially if he had other teams interested. I mean, he just got a 3-year extension. He just got a 3-year extension. I mean, why wouldn't he want to come back on a 3-year extension after winning a third of his games? Shams did say Chauncey would have had a loss of interest from other teams. It's almost like that fact got the Blazers to buy in. Dude, Arrow is killing me. Alright, alright. Javon, can you post pics in chat, or Trevin or somebody if you're here? I really cannot go back through and like find pics while I do this. That's gonna be next to impossible. We got Hawks for Arrow, who's dropping the ball. We got Hawks for Zach. Magic for Eric. We got Magic for Crushables. We got Magic for Trevin. This is way too slow, man. This is way too slow. Can a moderator please plug pics in chat? Please. We got Magic for Jackson. I love how the Blazers did this on a Sunday morning too. Alright, we got Hawks for Steven and 503. Thank you, Brendan. We got Brendan going Magic. All right. And chat is going with the Magic, 55% of the vote. All right. 8v5 in favor of the Magic. Game number 2. We have the Boston Celtics hosting the Charlotte Hornets. The Celtics 10.5 point home favorites. Injuries for this game out for the Hornets: Grant Williams, Brandon Miller, Trey Mann, Josh Green, Miles Bridges, LaMelo Ball, Mark Williams, and Nick Smith. Out for the Celtics: Jaylen Brown, Al Horford, Drew Holiday, Derek White, Kristaps Porzingis, and Jason Tatum. We're going to have very long injury reports today, obviously, with it being the last day of the regular season. Once again, we're picking 7 games, the first 7 games of the day, and then we'll pick the rest of the games at the end of the stream. All right, we got Javon on picks. Thank you, Javon. Appreciate you. All right. I'm just going to go with the Celtics. We got all right, that was Hawks. Okay, we got Celtics for Brendan. Celtics for 503. We got Celtics for Steven as well. All right, we got Celtics for Arrow. Jackson, Javon. Trevin, Crush, Zach. We got Connor going Celtics. We got Chat going Celtics. So is this just a clean sweep, or what did Eric go? Eric went with the Hornets. We got a good old Eric Island. By the way, if you want to double down on any of these games, you got to let me know right away. All right. And Eric Island. Javon, if you can just do it from the Discord chat, that's probably the easiest way. Game 3, we got the New York Knicks as 4.5-point road favorites against the Nets. Out for the Knicks. Ariel Hukporty, Mitchell Robinson, Karl Anthony Towns, OG Anunoby, Josh Hart, and Jalen Brunson. Out for the Nets. Cam Thomas, Day'Ron Sharpe, D'Angelo Russell, DeAnthony Melton, Cam Johnson, Noah Clowney, Zaire Williams, and Reese Beekman. If you're just joining the chat, we will talk about Chauncey after we pick a few more games here. The games that are tipping off right now, we are a little bit late. David says, after recently watching the Blazers win their championship game, it occurred to me that Coach Jack and that team would annihilate this current version of the Blazers. It's always hard to compare different eras. PDX Papermaker says, oh no, did you just find out that Chauncey got extended? Alright, Eric switching his double down to Hornets Island. We got Knicks for Brendan. Knicks for Connor. Just now getting the news. Good morning. Yeah, great way to wake up on a Sunday morning. Great news to wake up to, man. We got Knicks for Jackson, Crush, Arrow. .503 and Javon. I'll go Knicks as well. Sunday ruined. Yeah, weekend ruined. Alright. We got chat going Knicks 81% of the vote. Whoops, that's the wrong logo. Y'all been crapping on Chauncey all season long. Love the switch up. What do you mean the switch up? I don't think anybody in here thinks this is a good extension. I think 80% of people in here think this is a bad move. We actually did a poll recently, and pretty much everybody was in agreement that this was not the move to make. This was not the move to make. All right. Whoops, chat is Knicks. I keep putting a Nets logo, man. All right. 9v4 in favor of the Knicks. Game number 4, we have the Cleveland Cavaliers hosting the Indiana Pacers. Indiana 6.5-point road favorite. Out for the Pacers, Isaiah Jackson, Pascal Siakam, Tyrese Halliburton, Benedict Mathurin, and Ben Shepherd. Out for the Cavs, Ty Jerome, Sam Merrill, DeAndre Hunter, Donovan Mitchell, Max Strus, Evan Mobley, Darius Garland, Isaac Okoro, and Dean Wade. All right. I'm going to go Pacers. Brendan going Pacers. Hopefully we see some Amani Bates in this game. Yeah. We love some Amani Bates. All right. We got Pacers for Brendan, Steven, 503. Eric, Crush, Trevin. At least it's nice outside, man. At least I'm staring up at some blue sky right now. All right, we got Javon and Jackson. Are the rest Cavs? We got Pacers for Connor. Chat is going Cavs, 63% of the vote. The rest are Cavs. So Zach and Arrow. All right. Zach and Arrow. 10v3 in favor of the Indiana Pacers. Game number 5. We have... Man, we are getting through this as fast as we can. As fast as we can. We got the Heat hosting the Wizards. The Heat 8.5-point home favorites. Out for the Wizards, Jordan Poole, Chris Middleton, Corey Kispert, Anthony Gill, Bilal Coulibaly, Malcolm Brogdon, Sadiq Bey, Rashawn Holmes, and JT Thor. Out for the Heat, Drew Smith, Kevin Love, Pele Larson, Nikola Jovic, Isaiah Stevens, Alec Burks, Andrew Wiggins, Tyler Hero, and Bam Adebayo. All right, I'm going Heat. Brendan's going Heat. Why is Kyle Lowry not on the lineup for the Heat today? I don't know. I forget he's even in the league anymore. All right, we got Heat for Brendan, Javon, Steven, 503. Arrow, Zach, and Crush. We got Heat for Connor. Everybody else is going with the Washington Wizards. Chat's going Heat, 79% of the vote. All right. We got Eric, we got Jackson, we got Trevin. 10v3 in favor of the Miami Heat. All right, game number 6. We have a graphic that's not updated. Strange. All right, we got the Philadelphia 76ers hosting the Chicago Bulls. Chicago 8.5-point road favorites. Out for the Bulls, Trey Jones, Ayo Dosunmu, Lonzo Ball, and Josh Giddey. Out for the 76ers. Kelly Oubre, Jared McCain, Tyrese Maxey, Kyle Lowry. Oh, yeah, Kyle Lowry's on the Sixers. What are we talking about? He's not on the Heat. Eric Gordon, Paul George, Joel Embiid, Andre Drummond, Gershon Yabusele, and Justin Edwards. I feel like I just got tested about what team Kyle Lowry was on, and I failed. All right, we got Bulls, we got Sixers live in the chat poll. Don't look at scores. All right, we trust you, chat. Don't look at scores. Because I know these games have started, but doing the best we can with this big news today. We got one more game, and then we're going to talk about Chauncey. Who do Sixers even have available? That's a good question. Marcus Bagley had a good game last game. Good old Marcus Bagley. I was confused because I saw M. Bagley, and I was like, wait, no, Marvin Bagley's on the Grizzlies. Then I realized it was Marcus Bagley. We got Bulls for Brendan, Arrow, Crush, Trevin, Jackson. Cronin press conference at 10:30. I guess we can react to that. We'll actually be done in time by then. Connor's going Sixers. Everybody else is going Sixers. We'll at least be done with the first 7 games. I'll also go Sixers. Chat's going to go Bulls, 76% of the vote. Wow, that's funny. They don't go Sixers, they go Bulls, 76% of the vote. All right. The split vote, 76 in favor of the Sixers. And then the final game that we'll pick right now, we got the Bucks. We got the Pistons. The Pistons 8.5-point road favorites. A lot of 8.5-point spread lines today. Out for the Pistons, Jaden Ivey, Isaiah Stewart, Asar Thompson, and Cade Cunningham. Out for the Bucks, Jericho Sims, Damian Lillard, Bobby Portis, Brook Lopez, Ryan Rollins, Gary Trent Jr., Taurean Prince, Kevin Porter Jr., and Giannis Antetokounmpo. There's your chat poll chat. I'm going Pistons. Where can I watch the press conference? Maybe we can react to it live. We'll see. We got Pistons for Brendan. Yeah, we'll react to it live. So many really injured, or are these fake injuries? A lot of these are fake injuries for sure. For sure. I want to talk Billups after I can see where they are coming from. The team? I mean, I see where the team's coming from. I just think it's ridiculous. We got Jackson going Pistons. Javon and Trevin going Pistons. A lot of Pistons. Crushables, Eric, Zach. Arrow and Steven. All Pistons. What's Connor going with? Connor's been making his pick in chat. So we got 503. Next vote breaks the tie in the chat poll, and then we'll react to Chauncey Billups' press conference. Connor's going Pistons. We got chat stuck 50-50 on 24 votes between the Pistons and the Bucks. If you guys take 10 more seconds, I'll just flip a coin. All right, we got Bucks. There we go. Bucks for chat. 11v2 in favor of the Milwaukee Bucks. We'll pick the other 8 games at the end of the live stream before the Blazers game tips off. All right. Background music gone. What is the link? Let me see. Somebody give me a live stream link when it's ready. Preferably just the one off the Blazers website. So I'm going to set up a scene here. I was not prepared for this, but we will set up a scene. We need to protest this game. I mean, fans have been protesting Chauncey Billups all season. Literally all season. I've heard they switched up the way they did intros because he was getting booed. That's what a couple people said. They won't even show his record before games anymore on the broadcast. But he gets a 3-year extension. He gets the 3-year extension. Oh, I gotta log into Facebook for this. Do I even remember my Facebook login? Do we have a different link? Oh, we got yeah, do we have a different link other than Facebook? Thank you, Brendan, for the Facebook link. But if we have a different link other than Facebook, that would be great. Because unfortunately, your guy here does not remember his Facebook login. Thank you, Crushables. Shout out to Crushables. All right. Let me see if I set up the scene properly. This fan base is ridiculous as usual. What's ridiculous? I'd love to talk about it, honestly. Need to press play. Oh, well, it says exit interviews from last year. Oh, no, we're already rolling. All right. I'll unmute the audio in a second once my streaming software lets me, man. Or do I just play it off my phone?
Chauncey, and then we'll get to your questions.
Yeah, obviously this is an amazing day. I'm really happy, obviously, to be back.
All right, I can mute it. I'll play it directly through the stream. My computer's glitching. I'm upgrading it this
believing in Joe, believing in
this offseason,
our union. So I'm just really excited today. It's an amazing day. I know you guys got a ton of questions, so.
Yeah, is there a way to quantify or explain maybe how tenuous the situation was for both of you in terms of being re-signed and how much the turnaround, the 10 of 11, played into the decision to bring you back and then the decision to bring Chauncey back?
You know, the last couple of years, it's been complicated. Rebuilds are tough. You know, we went from, you know, a team that we hoped could be competitive a few years ago to a team that had a really rough season the year prior to, you know, very subpar start to this season. So those are tough, you know, navigating that as a group, and that's something I'm really proud of is how we stayed together. Nobody panicked. We believed in what we were building. We believed in, you know, the group of people we have, including, of course, you know, the players that we have.
Why is he talking like he's already built something?
You know, I don't think it was anything that surprised us. We just didn't know exactly when that was going to happen. When those guys, started playing the level of defense that we expected when they started to be more and more connected, when we started winning ball games and being really competitive on a nightly basis. That changed everything for us, and we're really proud of what's happened this second half of the season. Something for us, it's the defensive improvement that we've seen. For us to be the third best defense in the league this second half of the season, that's meaningful and substantive, and that's what we've been trying to build, and that's what we're going to point to moving forward. Like, this is who we are. Yeah, I think ownership has believed in us all along. Like, you also want to see, results. And once we started seeing like legitimate, sustained results, yes, small sample size, half a season, but I think there's a lot of good things to point to that's happened with this roster and this group over the course of the last couple of years since we started this rebuild. And sure, that definitely helped.
Chauncey, you talked about your vision. Can you reiterate what that is and what the tent poles are to that vision?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's crazy, Jason. It really hasn't changed since I've been here. I just believe our game has changed so much, and it changes every year. But there's certain things about our game that will never change. And starting here next week, you start to watch these playoffs, and these teams continue to advance. It's always going to be the best defensive teams. So I've always been very big on that. As a player, teams that I've won on, we've been pretty good offensively, but defensively we've been elite. And so that's been the main thing. That staple defensively is just kind of being a hard-nosed group. And that's what you guys kind of see in front of y'all every day, every night right now. But also just offensively, we have to get so much better offensively, and obviously that's on me. But just being able to play with a good pace and just moving the basketball, playing together, playing for one another has also been a big staple of mine. And it will continue to be that way. And that's
bottom 3 in assist percentage the last 2 years, though.
I love how we're building this team. We're building the defense first, obviously, but also while teaching all of our guys how to play with each other. I think there's so many teams in the league that they have these bona fide superstars that you have to live and die with how that one player plays every night. The way I love our situation is we don't have to live and die with one person offensively every night. We got a lot of different guys contributing to every single game. And as you're raising these guys every single year, you get used to that. And I think the best teams play that way. You look at OKC, you look at Cleveland, you look at Boston. The best teams play that way where everybody shares the wealth. And I just believe that we're building that way.
We die offensively every
In the past,
night.
you've mentioned that this wasn't the team that you signed up to coach, so it was a more veteran team. Now you're re-signed and the team is much younger. What's changed for you and as far as your coaching development and the growth that you've had where you're looking at a younger team and you want to be a part of that?
Yeah, well, obviously that changed very quickly after I got the job. But one thing about me, when I'm all in, I'm all in. So I'm all in to do the best job that I could from the very beginning. And even though it did change very quickly after, I had to really look myself in the mirror too, and understand how much development I personally needed too. So it probably was good that it changed so we can kind of grow together. I took this job, I had 1 year of experience. I wasn't nowhere near where I needed to be, to take a team over the top. So everything happens for a reason. Everything happens how it's supposed to. I've always believed that. So the way that this thing has gone, we've just kind of grown together. I've learned with the team. I've learned all the things that I needed to learn. And I'll still also know that I got so much growth in me too, So talk about potential. I look at myself first, not just my players. I think I have incredible potential as a coach and so many levels to get to as well. So that's one of the beautiful things about us kind of doing this thing together. And I talk about this a lot with my guys because I never want them to see me as superior or this or that. No, we really are growing up together in this process, and I think it's actually pretty neat.
This would be for both of you. Joe, you just mentioned the third best defense in the second half of the season. You guys were fourth worst in the league the first half of the season. Obviously, going from bottom 5 to top 5 is a pretty extreme swing in one season. So, what is it that you guys have seen or that makes you feel like more confident that you guys have been the second half of the season is closer to what you guys are than the first half of the season?
I mean, Chauncey can get into, some X's and O's things that we did, but just mentality-wise, I think, obviously we have a young group that they're going to get better over time, so we're seeing that growth, of course. But I think our mentality shifted. We learned that this is how we have to play night in and night out to be competitive, and it starts getting contagious, and winning starts really fueling you. And I think over the course of time, and we really haven't seen that defense deviate, even down this last couple weeks when we've been more shorthanded than previously. It's a mentality. Like these guys are tough. They're about the right things. They know we need to get stops in order to perform. They're getting more and more connected as we go.
Yeah, I would say to that, there were several things that I could point to, the shift and the change, because like you said, December we were the worst defense in basketball, and there were a lot of things that pointed to that. But I think when it really changed is I kind of got to a point with our squad where I just told them all I didn't really care who it was, the name on the back of the jersey, the salary, the whatever. I didn't care. We were sinking, and we were sinking pretty bad. I said, I'm going to play the guys. They're going to compete and play defense. And if you don't do that, I don't care. You're just not going to play. And I meant that. And they felt that. And it really brought us together, to be honest with you. And, the guys started seeing the beauty in being competitive and the beauty in playing defense. And it's what I've always said, like when you have a connected group, it's just very difficult to play against. And so they kind of got lost in that, So that was just one thing. But it was several things because we were kind of all over the map. But it's in terms of just mentality, it's just kind of who we are. The teams that come in here and play against us, they know they gotta bring their lunch pail. It's gonna be a tough game. Whether you win or lose, it's gonna be tough. That's just kind of who we are.
Joe, Chauncey says he likes how balanced this roster is, but conventional wisdom in the NBA says you need to have a star to build around and style of play and stuff. I'm not sure many people would say you guys have that star to build around. What do you say to that, or do you think you have it?
A challenge of ours will continue to be to keep adding to our talent base. I think we're really excited about what we have so far. We're far from complete. We're happy with how this season went. We're really excited about what the future seasons will look like. Our challenge is keep finding players, keep developing players. From the development standpoint, we've seen a handful of guys take really nice big jumps this year, and I don't expect those to not continue. And there's a lot of talent on this roster, and I wouldn't put ceilings on a lot of these guys. Like there's still a lot of time and a lot of talent that can be maximized here. It's like these guys, I wouldn't write them off to becoming those star level guys. But with that, we've got to keep getting better externally as well.
Jason, one thing on that, I would say to you, Jason, I look around the league, right, and you say having a star, and it's true. You gotta have top flight guys. But to me, I think we're raising that. All right, I think we're growing that. Like I look at when OKC traded for Shea, he wasn't a star. He wasn't a star yet. Now he's probably going to be the MVP of the league. Joker wasn't a star when he got to Denver. They raised him into that. Giannis wasn't a star when he got to Milwaukee. They raised him into that. And I just think there's beauty in that because, again, when you raise them into that, they're raised playing the right way. And all of those guys, they just play right. They don't give me the ball, watch out, I got it. They just play right with the team because they was raised into that stardom. And that's where I think we're trying to go here. You look at hopefully some of the leaps, you look at what Denny's done and Shaden and Scoots taking a leap. I thought Ant had a really good job. I mean, we're raising the guys. I mean, talk about that stretch we was on. I mean, DA was 22-15 on that stretch that we just got a lot of situations that we're raising that I think are pretty cool. So most people would say, yeah, go get such and such, or yeah, go. Well, we might have that person. You know, we might already have those guys, but we'll see.
You guys have talked about how much the trajectory obviously shifted mid-season. Does that trajectory, in your opinion, have you in the playoffs next year? Is that the logical next step for this team? The growth of this team is you're in the postseason next year.
Mm-hmm. Got to get through this transaction window before we start talking with certainty. But moving forward, the playoffs are definitely a goal of ours. Like, this is what we're working towards. Like, the steps we took these second half of the season. Okay, now we got to take this to the next level. Like, we're not happy about our season ending today. We don't want our season to end this time next year. Like, we need to keep moving forward. We'll get through these, see how the draft goes, see how trades and free agency go, and then start talking about what's realistic.
As a follow-up, would you expect that your floor has been raised to a point where that should be kind of the expectation? The floor would be postseason.
I think that's a reasonable expectation, assuming our guys keep getting better, assuming we do our jobs and keep adding talent to this roster. I don't see any reason why we shouldn't be competitive, in that regard.
Joe, you've talked a lot about maintaining the long view. Did anything that happened over the second half of this season, the success you guys have, change your approach to this offseason, or maybe even how you approach some of the goals and benchmarks you have in the next year or so?
Mm-hmm. Going into the season, the previous season, there were so many random injuries and random roster weirdness. We talked about this. We didn't get a lot of data from the previous season. This year, I felt like we got a ton of data. What's working, what isn't, what skill sets do we need to add, what types of personalities do we need to add. We learned a lot about our roster this year. Do we have all the answers yet? No. Are we still learning? Yes. I mean, still the second youngest team in the league, still have a lot to learn about and see from our young players and how these veterans fit in with them. So the approach, though, I think we can definitely be more diligent about the specific type of player that we're adding. And I love that we're at that stage where, as a front office, we don't feel that pressure to keep taking swing after swing to try and hit on the next up-and-coming guy. I think we're starting to feel really comfortable with our talent base that we can be more diligent about adding specific types of guys.
Joe, when you look at things, how do you guard against skipping steps now, as opposed to, you talk about the sample size, it's probably close to half a season, but how much of that is enough data for you to make the necessary steps without, for lack of a better term, getting a little too high on your own supply?
Yeah, that's our challenge, to build this the right way. And it's what we've been committed to and dedicated to not take shortcuts, to make sure this is sustainable, both from, a roster construction cap standpoint, but also just a realistic player development standpoint, given these guys who we've added the opportunity to be their best and to thrive. So it's a challenge to not get speed up. And somehow balancing that with, a level of aggression that we hope to have, as we're trying to get better and better.
Guys, it's been a bumpy 4 years since you took over for Neil. It's very uncommon in the NBA for a GM and a head coach, after 4 years of how it's been, to both still remain with that franchise. Mm-hmm. Has that experience brought you guys, or explain how that experience has brought you guys closer together and maybe created the bond that sort of made it seem like you guys had to continue this together?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's I tell you what, we've learned a ton, and we've had to learn it together. And we sit in that office sometimes, sitting there shaking our head like, man, this is tough. It's not easy, and the fragility of this position, we know it's crazy. So for us to be sitting here today saying, it's been 3 really tough years. This year to me hasn't been a tough year. It's been up and down, but it hasn't been tough. It's been a great year in my eyes. But for us to be sitting here saying, all right, we're moving on, let's keep going. It literally means to me that Jody and Bert and them see a lot of promise in us, and when the rest of the league and most of the league is moving and shaking and doing what they're doing, we're sitting here saying, all right, we're in a good spot. Let's just kind of keep going on this progress and keep progressing through. But it's an honor, it's not easy anymore in this league to be with one team for 3, 4, 5, 6 years. I mean, it's almost rare at this point. So it just lets us know what they think about us, and I'm happy about it. Well, we do. Obviously, Joe and I have been knowing each other since high school, so we've already had a pre-existing relationship, but not like this, And we've literally been in there saying, both of our backs are against the wall. Let's go. What are we gonna do here? So those type of things and that type of mentality and that type of adversity, it only makes you better, man. It only makes you better, and you start to learn with that other person how they react in tough times. We've learned a lot about each other that way, and I'm happy to say that I'm just so happy that we going forward together, because I believe in him, I believe in his vision, I believe in how he sees the game, and I'm pretty sure he could say the same about me.
Yeah, I mean, GM-coach relationships, they're complicated, especially as you're navigating tough times. And it could be what I'm most proud of is the way we've navigated this together and how we've stuck together and been through, some difficult moments, and how we're starting to celebrate some of the positive things that we've been trying to implement and build. So, it's not always unique that two people in our jobs can work so seamlessly, and it's something we're proud of, and it's something that we think really impacts the rest of our organization and our roster, and it's one of our strengths.
Chauncey, the team doesn't pick up your extension last offseason. As you mentioned, the NBA is ever-changing out here right now, and we know there's going to be more changes after the season. You could have easily used this second half of the season and said, hey, I'm going to go test myself out on the free market. What made you want to decide to come back here instead?
Yeah, I just felt very good about where we're at, and I now understand how long it takes to build a culture. And I feel like we've done that, I think the telltale of that, and for any coach, is if you're at some point when your team kind of takes on your personality and how you believe the game should be played, I think that you've gotten there, and I believe that our team has done that with me, and the entire time, I've been just saying, you never know when that's going to happen. You never know when your team is going to take the leap. You never know if the team will take the leap. And I just felt like we took some big strides this year, and had a lot to do with, the staff, and what we've done. But obviously, there's so much speculation, and this game, again, it's very fragile, so my people, and you hear everything, that I wasn't supposed to last through half of the season this year, and maybe Aaron just asked that question earlier. Maybe we don't go on that run. Who knows? You just never know, But I just had so much growing to do last year when they could have picked up that extension, and there was still things they needed to learn about me that they ended up learning, and it just all worked out. I just always believe you can't control fate, and what's going to happen is what's supposed to happen is going to, and this is what was supposed to happen, and I'm very, very happy about it.
Joe, you talked about you guys are about to enter the transaction window. Can you describe the role that Bert Cold will play in that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Bert's great. We spend a lot of time, when I say we do a thing which I think is really unique and very positive for what we're doing here. we call it a sync up, where it's myself, Chauncey, Dwayne, and Bert. Once a week, it's a big download on what's going on in our worlds that week. What are we working on? What do we need help with? What's going well? What isn't? And Bert plays a great role in that, where he's moderator. He's asking us questions. He's helping us think in different ways. He's providing insight, with, his decades of experience. So, that's a microcosm of the role Bert plays overall, where he's active. He cares about this team. He cares about us. He wants to see us all succeed, and he's challenging us. Hey, have you thought about this? Hey, we need to do this better. And it could be, the topics are wide-ranging, of course. Big stuff like roster decisions, there's input there and there's collaboration. Hey, have you thought about this? What about what's this team saying? There's definite, back and forth with myself and Chauncey and him, and good positive feedback.
How would you describe his basketball acumen? Like, what do you lean on, or what do you value that he brings to the table?
His experience, he's been through decades worth of different versions of different rosters, from winning at the highest level or nearly the highest level to multiple finals teams in the early 90s to, some good runs in the 90s to some good 2000 and 2010 Blazer teams. So, it's that experience level that, something neither Chauncey or I really have in these roles. We're both, we're like young players in this league that are now entering our second deals. We're coming off of our rookie scale contracts. We still have a lot to learn so to have these voices, that have been through it and probably seen some of the things that we're going through, is very valuable.
Real quick, you're one of the few people who has a dialogue with Jody Allen. Can you give some insight on to what her future is? Like, do you know if she has a deadline to sell, or?
We don't talk about that. Jody is incredible. Jody talks to us all the time about a lot of different things. That's her business. We don't meddle in that. We just stay locked in on, the team and the staff and what we're building here. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Good job, Joe.
Yeah, you too.
Wow. Wow. All right. I can't believe the way he just talked about Bert Cold. Great question. Listen, the media asked some tough questions. The media asked some great questions. We got some really good insight, and it's what we suspected, man. I honestly think that might have been, I don't know, like, I'm trying not to be in the moment and overreact or anything, but was that one of the worst press conferences we've ever heard? From the way they're celebrating winning 35 games, they started off this interview talking like they had accomplished something big because they're 12th in the West, number one, which is just insane. Then you have Chauncey basically saying, like, yeah, I was not qualified to be hired when they hired me to try and help Dame, you know what I mean? Like, I just need time to develop. I've had 4 years, and a lot of coaches don't get 4 years, especially when their biggest win season is 35 freaking games, but thank goodness I got 3 more years, because I think I got a lot of potential 4 years into his freaking tenure here. They had to learn things about me. I've only been here 3 years, but they still had some things to learn about. From that to Cronin talking about Bert Cold as if Bert Cold is the GM. Chauncey talking about how basically implying that Bert Cold has more, I don't know, like more basketball knowledge, more experience. He's been around, man. He has more experience than we do in these roles. We meet with them every week. And Bert Cold, this is Cronin's own quote. Bert Cold is helping us think in different ways and providing us insight. Asking us, have we thought about this? Have we thought about that? This ownership group is ruining this freaking franchise, man. I just can't believe we heard that. I cannot believe we heard that. Is Cronin even the GM? The funny thing is like, Cronin, with that answer, is going to try and make the situation sound as good as possible. Of course. He's going to make the Burt Cold situation sound as good as possible. Okay? If that's as good as you can make it sound, that's really bad. Cronin's not going to go up there and say, Burt Cold tells us to do this, Burt Cold tells us to do that. That's literally only the next step beyond what Cronin said, though. Burt Cold has way too much input on this freaking team. Burt Cold is a legitimate problem. He always wanted more control and more say when Paul Allen was owner. I've heard people talk about how Paul Allen had to keep him at an arm's reach. But then after Paul Allen's passing, Burt gets his chance. And what's happened? In 4 years, they're celebrating finally winning 35 games. That's what's happened. They're celebrating mediocrity. They explicitly said in this press conference that their goal is to make the playoffs. And not once during this press conference did they say they had a goal of building a team that can win a championship or building a true contender. They also brought up how, SGA wasn't a star when he got drafted, and Giannis and Jokic weren't stars when they got drafted. And basically, maybe we have that player on our team. And then literally a minute later, they bring up the term, I forget what the term was, something like realistic development. After just basically saying, we might have the next SGA or Jokic or Giannis. I mean, my goodness, man. I feel like I'm forgetting stuff from this press conference. But it's exactly why I've been fed up with this freaking organization. Not only did you, by your coach's own words, not only did you hire a coach that was not qualified for the job, you hired a GM with no experience without interviewing anyone else, and then after 4 years, the most games he's won is 35 games. The highest he's finished in the West is freaking 12th! 12th! Out of 15 teams in 4 years. And you have some actual talent on the coaching market this offseason, and you're going into the offseason extending him without even seeing what else is out there that could be better. I mean, this organization just simply doesn't care about anything other than trying to get maybe an 8th seed, a home play-in game. They want mediocrity. And that's the problem when you have an owner like Burt Cold who's, financially invested. I don't think he cares about winning championships. That's the guy you're taking insight from. That's the guy that, has so much experience, man. Where's Eric? He had a soccer. He has some his daughter's soccer game or something like that. So Eric would have probably passed out after hearing that. So I'm kind of glad he's not here. I don't think Eric would have survived that. What's funny is after bringing up SGA and Jokic and Giannis, they start talking about, like, DA had a stretch where he averaged 22 and 15. I mean, it's insane, dude. It's insane. I don't even know how mad I am at Cronin, man. Like, Cronin, if Bert Cold has this much insight and this much power, as has been rumored, and then I feel like confirmed with that answer, Cronin's stuck in a tough position where he has to do that dude's bidding and he has to answer to that dude. Like, I don't even know if Cronin should be the one we blame for a lot of the moves or lack of moves that have happened at this point. Like, Cronin's supposed to be friendly, like, try and convince fans that this organization knows what it's doing, right? Say the right thing, try and package things in the right way. I will say he has done an okay job of that. And that's probably why he got extended. I'm seriously starting to question how much of Cronin's responsibility is to actually build a winning roster and how much of it is like PR and saying the right thing in interviews, GM speak. Of course, that's going to be a part of any job, but man, it's just, the dysfunction starts at the top. Jody still has this team for some freaking reason. It was supposed to be sold. And the ownership is a problem. And until they are gone, I don't see that problem ever changing. If they're celebrating winning 35 games, and they're celebrating it with extensions, and they're talking about how they're acting like they accomplished something legitimate by winning 35 games. How do you think they're going to celebrate losing in 5 in the first round? They're acting more hype than when we went to the conference finals. Dude, it's insane. I really am, like, to the point where I just want to give up on the hope that this team ever contends. I really am. Because it would make it a lot easier to stomach a lot of this crap. It would make it a lot easier to stomach this stuff if it was just like, yeah, man, maybe we can have some fun this season and maybe we can make it to the first round and then we get some extra basketball. Like, if that was my mindset, I would love everything that's happening right now. You know what I mean? Like, man, we got so close to the play, and maybe next year we can get close to the playoffs, and then maybe the year after that we could lose in 5. You know? And then we can extend Chauncey again. If you guys have watched the channel long enough, you know that I desperately want this team to build a contender. I desperately want this team to win a championship or just win a freaking Western Conference Finals game. You know, like, just have a chance. Just have a chance. Yes, it's really hard to win a championship. Yes, there's only a few contenders every year, but you should strive to be a part of that group. And I've always said this too. If this organization tries their best to build a contender and they fail, I can stomach that much more easily than them settling for not being one or trying to convince themselves that everything's going to go perfectly and everything's just going to fall into place and, like, Shea's the next SGA. And in Ayton, man, he averaged 22 and 15 during that stretch, you know? Like, maybe in a playoff series he can kind of be like our Jokic. This front office, this organization have given them so little margin for error coming out of this rebuild, which they obviously think they're out of now. That press conference confirmed that the playoff or bust next year. That should be the expectation, right? We are out of the rebuild. That is obviously their mindset, okay? Which means one of two things. They're probably going to run it back next year, Scoop might never start under Chauncey Billups, or they make a really aggressive move for like a Sabonis who can't be the number one on a contending team, and then they're locked into a roster that will never contend. Because they don't have that many draft assets. Coming out of a rebuild, they do not have many draft assets. They literally have two swaps. That's what they netted out as. Now, the 2029 best of Boston, Milwaukee, Portland first-round pick is obviously better than the first-round pick Portland owes Chicago. But that 2029 Boston, Milwaukee, Portland first is basically the only extra first that the Blazers have, and they still owe their first to Chicago, which if they achieve their goals, they won't have a first-round pick next year. The Bulls will have the 15th or 16th pick. After all this talk about how, it doesn't matter if the Blazers get their pick back or not, that a lot of people have tried to say to me, well, I mean, if they're successful next season, they are literally trading the 15th, 16th pick to Chicago. Finally. Right? So you have two extra swaps coming out of this rebuild. Yeah, you have some young talent, but man, you did not give yourself much margin for error because you don't have a ton of draft capital to trade for a superstar if one becomes available. You only have enough draft capital to trade for the type of player who's not a number one player on a contending team. So in order to get a number one player on a contending team, you have to hope that your player development goes perfectly and somebody absolutely maxes out their upside, which is always very unlikely, right? Because if you sit here and say, Jokic was a second round pick, and look at him, he became an MVP. Literally every team that drafts somebody in the second round could say that about that player. Like, man, look, Jokic, he was the 41st pick. So, who's the 41st pick last year? Let me just 2024 NBA draft. The 41st pick last year was Adem Bona. Hey guys, my name's Daryl Morey. Nikola Jokic was the 41st pick back in the day. Now he's an MVP. He just averaged a triple-double. So we just drafted Adem Bona, 41st overall. He's also a center. So, who knows? Because Jokic wasn't a star when he got drafted. And Bona's not a star either. But, Jokic was developed into that. And we're going to develop Adem Bona very, very hard. So, yeah. It just pisses me off when, they bring up the most complete outlier cases. SGA, Jokic, Giannis, those are such complete outliers that just banking that, we're just going to be able to develop the next one of them. And just banking on that, and that's your only fallback plan is insane. You should not be, or your plan should not be, the only way we'll contend is if we have a complete outlier happen. Something very unlikely, very unrealistic happen. It should be, man, if Sharp becomes the next SGA, great, but we're going to try and make sure we build a contender, assuming that Sharp doesn't become a freaking MVP. We're going to try and get more draft assets. We're going to not pay Jeremy Grant an obscene amount of money, not value DeAndre Ayton. Instead, we're going to value cap space and flexibility and take on contracts so we can get more assets so that if Shea doesn't develop into the next SGA, we'll have a bunch of assets in the future to trade for somebody that's maybe close to what SGA is. And then we have a fallback plan. Then we have margin for error, where if Sharp doesn't absolutely maximize his upside, we still have a chance to build a contender. But no, it's literally we're happy with the young talent. We're happy with the development. We need to add more talent, but we're happy with the steps we've taken, and we're ready to make the playoffs next year. And then we'll just see what happens. And maybe we have the next MVP on our team. Maybe we can develop them. It reeks of an organization that doesn't have a plan, but we've been saying this for 4 years. They didn't have a plan to build around Dame. They said they were going to be super duper aggressive and then never did anything to build around him. Then they trade him to go into a rebuild, but they're paying Jeremy Grant and DeAndre Ayton $65 million a year. And then when they win 35 games, it's like, yay, rebuild over. Oh, and Burt Cold is our GM. Anyway, I'll read the chat. I'll actually take your guys' calls. If you disagree with me, I'd love to hear from you. We'll take your calls in about 5 to 10 minutes. I want to answer questions from chat, and then we will take calls. Are the Blazers basically the Mariners at this point? They're really working on being the Seattle Mariners of the NBA. Trying to win with Dame with self-admitted underqualified hires. Yeah. JB from PNW says, I hate to be the only optimistic dude in these comments, LOL, but Denny really surprised me this year. He played like a star for a while, and I think we need to hold on to him. Absolutely need to hold on to Denny. The thing is, nothing with Denny surprised me. I love the Denny move. I praised Cronin for the Denny move. But that's what's funny, is like, people think, I just want to hate on Cronin. When he makes a move that's legitimately good, I will sit here and praise him. I'll sing his praises. And then look how that's turned out. The move that I love the most of Cronin turns out to, in fact, be his best move. You know what I mean? Like, Raytech says, I'm an excellent yapper. Well, that'll be our first call. Our first call, Raytex. We'll take your call. Now, probably we'll keep it to like 2 to 3 minutes, so make sure you have what you want to say ready. Casey. That's funny. Does Chauncey still get introduced in the starting lineup? Eric, I think that's funny. All right, let me see. What comments? Who disagrees with me? Who disagrees with me? I would love to discuss this. I'm amped up right now. In case you can't tell, I'm drinking a Celsius right now. Hashtag not sponsored. I'm amped up. I'm ready to go. Habib says, Grant, Simons 8, and Chauncey Thibault and Robert Williams III all returning. Looks like is sadly, how could anyone be fine with this? They refuse to rebuild after trading him. Listen, if Grant and Ayton are back next year, man, I think some of the cronies will start to turn on the process. Why boo Chauncey? Dude just hit the lottery. Boo at Cronin. Well, booing Chauncey, in effect, is booing the decision to extend him. Like, Ant needs a trade to Orlando. If he made a jump to 26 points per game for us this year, I'd say keep him, but he actually regressed a bit. Trade him while he's still young enough to have upside. Absolutely. Absolutely. They need to start to sell the team chain. Here's the thing. A lot of the fan base is just completely fine with this. A lot of the fan base is super passive in a way where it's like, yeah, you guys did better this year. Let's just keep it going. And that's their attitude. Like, that simple. The team did better. We should just, man, they won 14 more games this season. If they do that again, they'll have 49 wins next season. They all want Ayton back too. Yeah, I mean, Ayton is coming back. Like, here's the thing at this point. At this point, I wouldn't be surprised if they extended freaking Ayton. A lot of Ayton Glazers in Portland, I don't know why. Here's why. Yusuf Nurkic drove people crazy. He wasn't that athletic, but he did like little things well. He was solid. But people didn't like, the defense was bad. People blamed that all on Nurkic, even though the problems were like everywhere on the roster. So fans wanted an athletic center that's young with upside. The perfect example of that is Ayton. He was the number 1 overall pick. Look how young he is. He just needs a new situation. He's athletic. So then he gets here and is super inconsistent, but you can see the upside in like little stretches. So people fixate on those stretches like, man, look how good he was for this 3-week stretch. He averaged 22 and 15 for this 3-week stretch, man. He could be so good if he just, developed a little bit more. And he's still young enough to develop a little bit more. He still has upside. He was the number 1 pick for a reason. And he's athletic. Like, we actually have a center that can move, can defend the perimeter, is athletic, even though, like, Ayton refuses to get a hand up on closeouts half the time and is very lazy defending the perimeter and, like, is not a rim protector, and our defense was much better with Klingon in the game this year and, like, all that stuff, right? But that's why people love Ayton. Or that's why people defend Ayton. It's funny because it seemed like the rest of the fan base, even the people that supported him, finally gave up on him at like halfway through the season. And then he starts playing well and people were right back on board like, yep. See? But it's like, I don't want a dude that's making a max contract whose effort is piss poor half the season just because he has a good month once in a while. I want dogs. I want dudes that can get after it. Dudes that'll pick up full court. Dudes that'll dive on a loose ball. Dudes that'll hustle. Dudes that if their offense isn't going, they'll try and make up for it defensively. Dudes that don't care about their shot attempts. Guys that do the little things and take pride in that. Tamani Kamara's that type of guy. Denny Avdia is that type of guy. Donovan Klingon's that type of guy. DeAndre Ayton is not cut from the same cloth. He is not that type of guy. And I'm tired of it. But I expect him back next year, which honestly isn't the worst thing. He's going to be an expiring contract. He's going to be a movable asset as a salary matcher to try and bring in other pieces via trade. Okay? And you still have Klingon. He'll be in year 2. He doesn't have to start year 2, but he should be playing 20 minutes a game next year at least. Okay? And then Klingon looks good. You can trade Ayton at the deadline. That should absolutely 1,000% be the longest that Ayton is on this team. But if this team gets like an 8th seed next year with Ayton starting, you can absolutely believe that they'll bring Ayton back. Even though they drafted Klingon 7th overall to be their starting center of the future, even though they might have had Klingon number 1 on their big board, on their draft board. But that's just the directionless that we've come to know with this organization. And here's the thing. At the start of the season, we were acting like Chauncey Billups was a lame duck coach. He just got a freaking extension because he finished 12th in the West. So, I mean, I'm at the point where I think it's 50-50 that Ayton is extended. And at this point, I kind of think it should be higher than 50% that we expect that. I mean, it's just like the same repetitive thing. This offseason is going to be fascinating. Like I am scared. But what do you think they would pay him, LOL? Dude, I think they'd pay him like $25 million. Ayton is an expiring $35 million. Trading him now is not selling low on him. And he has been a terrible asset since he was re-signed. This is absolutely not the low point on him. Yeah, he has no value as a player on that contract. But that contract is a movable piece as part of a trade that you're accomplishing different things with. It's not going to be something where, we're trading Ayton for X amount of value. It's going to be we're using Ayton to acquire a different salary piece that we like. Just like Malcolm Brogdon wasn't traded for any value. The Wizards did not value him at all, but his salary was used to bring back Denny Avdia. Even though different salary could have been used to bring back Denny Avdia, but that's the point with Ayton. You can't sell low on a guy that has no value and didn't have value when you got him. what team would have traded for Ayton when the Blazers traded for him? Look at what the Suns got back. And they traded Tamani Kamara in the trade. Ayton had no value when the Blazers traded for him. He still doesn't have value. So you're not selling low. What would selling high have looked like for Ayton? Because if they did have an opportunity to sell high for any sort of value, they probably should have done it already. All right, we're going to take your calls in Discord. This is a therapy stream. You can call in since Eric isn't here. Just go to our Discord, link in description box below, click the call in the top left, and you can call into the show. All right, I'm going to invite Raytex in chat. What's going on, man? Is your mic working and can you hear me? How's it going? Yeah. I saw him at Hoop Summit last night. I went to the Hoop Summit and he was there sitting with Klingon and Sissoko and Anthony Simons. So that was cool. Abayev? Yeah, he looked good. He looked good. I'm gonna talk about it probably on the post game show a little bit, my Hoop Summit experience. But yeah, let me make sure I turn up your mic too. Oh, I had desktop audio muted. Look at me making mistakes. All right.
Am I muffled?
Chat. No, you're good. It was my end, man. It's a Sunday. I've been making mistakes with muting Eric lately and stuff like that. So we're good. What are your
Okay,
thoughts
so
on
I'll start by saying that us Israeli people are great yappers, silver tongue, whatever you want to call it. And we can smell it from a mile away. And whatever he's talking about, Billups, whatever Cronin is talking about, that's just silver tongue. That's just, wishy-washy. I don't like that.
Yeah.
So I'll start by that. But you're talking about Billups. The way I view it is, can we agree that Billups is more of a player's kind of coach? He's not very good, tactically and, running plays and stuff like that. But he's really good at affecting players, developing them, and I think that's what.
I'll say this. Before this year, it was hard to even say he was good at developing or affecting players.
Yeah, but he had bad team. Let's be honest. He had
here's the catch-22 though. Here's the catch-22 though. If he has young players that don't develop, then you can say, oh, they're just bad players. What is he supposed to do? But if those young players do develop, then you can give Chauncey credit.
It's not about bad players. It's inexperienced players. I didn't like the fact that he said, "Oh, we are inexperienced, like me and Cronin, so that's our extension." Not like that. But what I'm saying is, basically, you have a young core right now. You like to say that, "Oh, we're the youngest team and stuff like that." That's fine, relatable, understandable, okay. But I don't that. Like you said, Billups is a losing coach. He's not doing well. Well, you need to understand that no matter how good you are, if you had bad cards or, you're basically not going to succeed. So I don't think that Billups is as horrible as you say. I don't think he's as good. I don't agree and I don't disagree with you. I think that right now, for developing young players, having a coach, I would much rather have Billups as an assistant coach, as a trainer or something like that, working with the young guys. I don't think that tactically is as good as it should be, but I think that having someone like that is really, really good for young players. I hear interviews with players, maybe it's just, lip service or whatever, but basically I can hear them say, oh my God, he helped me with that, he helped me with that. He's good at developing young coaches. Like I heard Danny talking about how Billups assisted him and helped him. So is he the coach that will take us to championship? No. But is he a coach that in the next 2 years can lead a team, develop the young folks? Yeah.
Well, here's the problem. I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying about, he's a developmental coach. The problem is their mindset their mindset has shifted towards we're going for the playoffs. Their mindset has shifted out of player development mode, and
Yeah,
they
but
made
they're
that
delusional.
pretty obvious. Yes. Well, this is entirely my problem, right? If you want to have Chauncey for your rebuild, to set a culture, to develop players, even though like you could make the argument he has not done a good job of developing players until maybe this year, but that aside, if you want to have Chauncey Billups as your rebuilding coach, all right, sure, have him for your rebuilding coach. But they are currently shifting out of that mindset, shifting towards playoffs should be the goal next season, and his contract's up, and they extend him even though he's not the right coach to take that next step because schematically, X's and O's, especially his offense, is really, really bad. And if you want to beat good teams, you have to be able to scheme. You have to be able to run creative stuff offensively. And we saw it, especially earlier in the season, man. He had no idea how to use Denny. He had no idea how to, use Scoot at times this season, where Scoot's sitting in the corner too much. He doesn't use Shaden Sharp off the ball enough. He doesn't use his athleticism enough. Like, there's a lot of problems that Chauncey, I think, has proven in terms of weaknesses, especially with X's and O's, that don't make him the right coach going forward. And I think you can find a number of guys that can also develop young players. I don't think developing young players for NBA coaches is actually that hard. Young players are going to get better, especially if you have guys that will just naturally work. And I think the Blazers, and this is maybe a testament to Cronin actually, they've brought in young players that work really, really hard already. Denny works really hard. Scoot works really hard. Klingon works hard, right? So like these players are naturally going to improve, and if that's the only thing for a coach is like, oh yeah, he helps players develop and he sets the culture and this and that, then like, okay, fine, but you should not have that coach for 7 years. And Chauncey's been here 4 years, just got a 3-year extension. So that's the problem I have with it, is bringing him back does not align with the mindset they currently have, even though I disagree about the mindset they currently have. I also think it would be good for player development to have a coach that runs more creative stuff offensively and gives these guys more challenging reads to make, because it's far too often just one player dribbling too much, everybody else standing around, nobody knowing what to do. And I think that's something that can hurt offensive development for young players. So that's why I'm really frustrated with this move.
I agree. I think that Chauncey Billups is more of an assistant coach. I think he jumped the water way too quickly. I think he should have stayed as an assistant coach, understanding more tactics, working under someone who's more experienced and knows more. But right now, unfortunately, and I am saying it, unfortunately, he's gonna be our coach. But I'm not gonna say that I completely hate it. I don't think that he should have continued. I think they should have replaced him. But at the same time, now that he's here, I'm like, okay, like I understand where they're coming from. They see him doing a great job. The problem is that they had certain expectations before this season started. Like everyone were against them. Everyone said, even Vegas said like 21.5, I think,
Yep.
for the year. Yeah. So, and they managed to. I can tell you, Portland was really close to having 40 games win. Now you can say, no, we have 35. Starting stuff, we're so close. We threw a few games. Some of it is, yes, Chauncey's fault. I understand. But I don't know. Like, I think maybe I haven't been here because, well, as you know,
Yeah.
I'm mostly a Danny's fan. So I don't know the whole history of this club.
I think if you had been watching the Blazers since Chauncey took over, you would probably be fed up with him, just because like the same weaknesses he has and the same struggles he's had just wear on you, because it's just the same stuff every year. Even with different teams, he's still running the same stuff. He still has the same flaws. He's talking about how he improved and this and that, but like the offense especially is just a disaster, man.
It's stagnated. You think?
It's too stagnant. Last year they were the worst team in assist percentage, and that's not like assist per game. That's assist percentage is the percentage of buckets you make that were assisted upon. So it's not based on how many you made, it's based on the shots that you did make, how many were assisted upon. They were last in the league last year, and they were 28th this year, so they were third worst this year. and he preaches all this ball movement and playing as a team, but then his offense is always super stagnant, and it's backed up by that stat where, yeah, they a lot of their buckets are guys isolating, are guys trying to get downhill. And he even said in the press conference today, like, we don't have any one player, I'm paraphrasing because I don't remember the exact quote, but we don't have any one player that you're just going to run stuff through. Like, we got multiple guys. It's like, you got to do a better job to get them playing off of each other. And that's been an issue with him for the longest time. And it shows no signs of getting better, but he still gets an extension. And it's like, all right, we're still going to have this bad offense where you just have guys isolating constantly and kind of taking turns dribbling the ball too much. And, you know, that's something where it's like, if this is your first year watching him and his young team that exceeds expectations, I understand why I'd be like, oh yeah, he did an okay job. But seeing those struggles that I'm talking about year after year is just, I'm personally done with it.
Yeah, so like people, again, we're biased, but people in Israel likes to say that Danny basically saved their career, or their jobs. Like I would say,
I don't
Danny
even.
and Kamara.
You know what's funny is, like, if this ownership group had high expectations, I would agree with that. I don't think their jobs are ever in jeopardy because I don't think this ownership group actually like cares to build anything more than a play-in team or a bottom playoff team. But Denny was a huge reason why they improved this year.
Yeah. Well, is there? Okay. Yeah, I will just sum it up by, I don't think it's as bad as people say, but again, I might be wrong. I just think that as a development coach, he's not that bad.
Yeah, I mean, most coaches don't get 4 years to develop. That's also kind of the other thing is.
Yeah, but it's not the same
like,
group.
This is
like, who did he have
unprecedented.
4 years ago? Like, you
He
had
had
Shea
Dame.
2 years ago, then
he
you
had
had Scoot, then you had.
Well,
yeah,
he had Dame. He had Dame. But he came in and he really struggled. Like, but this is the problem I have. I think X's and O's are a big thing for coaches. Okay, like how you scheme your offense, how you scheme your defense is a big thing for coaches. And everybody that I hear from that like tries to defend Chauncey, I never hear anything that he does well offensively or defensively in terms of how he schemes things up or X's and O's. And like, yeah, you know, other stuff is important. Some of the stuff you're talking about is important, but at the end of the day, it's like you've had 4 years and still can't even think of anything you do well schematically. That's a big issue for me, and that part has not improved enough for him to be brought back, let alone extended, in my opinion.
Did he have the tools?
Here's the thing, you don't necessarily need, like, these are NBA players, right? Shaedon Sharpe has a ton of athleticism. Nothing is stopping Chauncey from running him off more curls, which he has looked good at his entire career, or setting back screens for him to catch a backdoor lob. He's one of the best athletes in the league. If you don't have as good of tools, you should actually be running more structure offensively. If you don't have the tools, you shouldn't be playing out of isolation all the time because you don't have ISO players.
But you don't have shooters as well.
Yeah, but that's exactly why you have to get moving. If everybody's standing around and watching somebody dribble and you have guys standing on the wing that aren't shooters, their defenders are just going to pack the paint and it's going to be really easy to defend you. If you get guys moving, at least setting screens for each other with guys that maybe aren't the best shooters, you're actually making the defense defend you off the ball, defend you on other areas of the floor. So,
okay.
Yeah.
I would say I think you should divide this season to like 2 parts. Basically, the first half you had Aiden, you had Grant, you had Simons, you had all these guys, and you saw that they're basically playing like they played last season. Like the only thing that changed a bit is maybe Kamara got better, and then he was fucking horrible at the beginning of the season, but it was like after Grant stopped playing, he got injured, and then Aiden stopped. Basically, after the All-Star break, let's say, you saw that when the young guys actually started playing, and Denny led the team, and then you had Kamara doing more offensively, and then you had even Scoot to some extent. They started, like people like to say, the 10 out of 11. Yeah, that's a good stretch. It doesn't mean much, even a blind chicken can find a grain. but basically that's how I view it. Like something happened there that gave them expectations, but I think when the young folks played, they played a lot better and they took good teams. You always like to say, "Oh, they didn't play their best player." Most teams in the league are better than us, even without their best player. So we're still giving them
I
a
don't
hard
agree with.
time.
Well, the problem is Billups and Cronin are acting like we are better than that, right? They're not acting like most teams are better than us even without their best player. But here's the thing, like they're talking about, top 5 defense in the last half of the year and 22-17 since January 18th or mid-January, whenever it was. But it's like, all right, out of those 22 wins, how many of those wins were really good wins? How many of those wins did you beat an above 500 team with their best player? Only 2 of them. Well, 3 of them. The Magic, if they lose today, will be back to 500. So it's like 2 to 3 of those 22 wins that you're putting so much stock in were against above 500 teams with their best player. I think only like 5 of them were against above 500 teams. So basically, you beat up on a lot of bad teams. Every good team you played that was relatively healthy, even some that were missing their whole starting lineup, like OKC, you got destroyed. Your biggest game of the year was at Sacramento, who was on a 4-game losing streak and had been playing very, very poorly. And you lost 128 to 107. This top 5 defense gave up 81% from 2 to the Kings, which is the highest mark by any team in the league. And that was your most important game of the season. You didn't even show up. Like, that's the problems I have with like reading too much into their last half of the season
The
and going
Wizards
22 and
beat
17.
beat Denver as well.
Yeah, but
You know,
that's a
stuff, weird
that's
stuff
a
can
one
happen.
that's a 1-game sample. We're talking about how there's a whole 22 and 17. How many games is that? 39 games. We're talking about how they're reading into a 39 game sample where you shouldn't read that much into that sample as much as they are because of you barely beat any good teams that had their best player. And if that's like the
But
goal is to make the
weren't
playoffs, you're going to
blowouts.
have to do that.
But
I
they
mean,
weren't
128
blowouts.
to 107 against the Kings in your most important game of the year. That's a 21-point loss against a mediocre team in your most important game of the year.
Yeah, that's a fumble. Yeah, I understand what you're saying. That's bad. That shouldn't have happened. That's I don't know what happened there. I watched that game, even though it was very late for me, but I still watched that game. I I don't know. Like I understand where you're coming from. I'm watching you
Yeah.
for quite a while, but at the same time, I think there's a bright light. I think if even if Scoot, Shea take a step forward, you have Denny taking a step forward, you have Klingon taking a step forward, which happens, which can happen. You have players that are currently all stars or maybe top 10. That started being really good after the age of, let's say, 23, 24, 25. You have Bronson, who was like fucking 50 or something when he started to get good. But you have the potential there. I really think that you have potential. I enjoyed watching this team. If this team was not enjoyable, they were losing, but they were not enjoyable, I would say, you know what, I completely agree with you. This team is going nowhere. But I actually enjoyed watching this team after the All-Star break. It was fun. Even though we lost some games, it was enjoyable.
Yeah, I mean, I think enjoyable to me and like doing the right thing aren't necessarily always going to be the same thing. But I appreciate your call. I appreciate your
Yeah.
call. It takes some guts to call in and disagree. So, but I was happy
You
that
said
you called
3
in.
minutes, it was 20 minutes. I'm sorry about that.
No, it's all good. It's all good. We're killing time here, man, and it's not like anybody else had the guts to call in. So appreciate it. Thank you.
Always. Take care. Bye-bye.
Take care. See you. All right. If anybody else wants to call in, we'll run call-ins to 12 p.m. and then we're gonna pick some more games. Is Eric? Here's the thing about not many of them were blowouts too. Like if we just go after that 11-game stretch where they won 10 games. They lost by 16 to Minnesota. Remember, they were missing like Anthony Edwards and missing like multiple starters. Then they lost by 29 to Denver. Then they lost to 11 by Denver. So that's 3 straight double-digit losses. Then they lost to 8 to the Lakers coming out of the All-Star break. But then they won 4 out of 5 games. But who are those wins against? Who are those wins against? Charlotte, Utah, Washington, Brooklyn, and Philadelphia. Okay. They then lost 5 in a row where they lost by 10 to Boston. They lost by 18 to OKC when they were benching their entire starting lineup to the point where the NBA investigated it. They lost by 7 versus the Pistons. The team that Blazer fans said, you don't want to be the Pistons last year as an excuse for keeping the vets. They lost by 10 to Golden State, and then they lost in OT off the Mikal Bridges buzzer beater to New York. But that was a game they didn't have Jalen Brunson. Like, that's the thing. A lot of these losses, too, against above 500 teams, they also did not have their best player. They lost to the Cavs twice without Donovan Mitchell. They lost to the Knicks at home without Jalen Brunson. They lost to the Celtics, remember, where Peyton Pritchard and Derek White just torched us. The Celtics were without Jason Tatum, Kristaps Porzingis, and Drew Holiday. The Blazers lost by 10. The Blazers had an insane stretch after the All-Star break where they kept facing, every good team they faced was missing multiple key guys or missing their best player. And they routinely got beat by double digits. Right? They have a 4-game winning streak versus Toronto, versus Washington, versus Memphis, versus Denver from March 16th to March 21st. Okay. Yeah, you beat Toronto and Washington at home. Good job. Okay, then you beat the Grizzlies. They didn't have Ja Morant. Then you beat the Nuggets. They didn't have Nikola Jokic. And I believe there was somebody else out. No, but they didn't have Nikola Jokic, who is Nikola Jokic. They are not a good team without Nikola Jokic. They're a bad team without Nikola Jokic. Okay. Then a 4-game losing streak. You lose at home versus Boston. They were without Jaylen Brown. They were without Drew Holiday. They were without Kristaps Porzingis, but you lost by 13 at home. You lose to Cleveland by 11, still double-digit losses. Cleveland didn't have Donovan Mitchell in that game. Then you go on the road to Sacramento in the biggest game of the year, and you lose 128 to 107. You give up 81% from 2. And then you lose at New York 110 to 93. By the way, the Knicks were still without Jalen Brunson. They started DeLon Wright and played him 35 minutes. They played Tyler Kolek 14 minutes. They played Landry Shamet 19 minutes. That's the thing, is like the Knicks, did they have the tools in that game? I mean, they were playing DeLon Wright 35 minutes, you know? Of course, they have Towns. Towns only had 10 points. No, you got torched by OG Anunoby and Mikal Bridges had 28 apiece, right? They didn't have Jalen Brunson. Like, that is the story of the second half of the season. Then the Blazers win 3-4, but who were the teams they beat? They beat Atlanta, who, by the way, was without their second best player in Jalen Johnson and is a below 500 team. They beat Toronto, who's tanking, and they beat San Antonio, who's tanking. That is the stretch after the 10 wins in 11 games. Like, it's not that impressive. They're doing this as the second youngest team in the league, though. The thing is, I don't even like using that as an excuse because I think they're better with their younger players, number one. So I don't think it should be an excuse for being worse when they're better with their younger players. Number two, it's like, okay, you're the second youngest team in the league. Embrace that instead of being like, yeah, we won. We took a huge step. We won 35 games this year. Let's give everybody extensions and let's go for the playoffs next year. The problem is they have left the rebuild mindset. When you leave the rebuild mindset, the second youngest team in the league excuse doesn't apply anymore because you're not in a rebuild anymore. And that's the problem, is they've left that mode. Next season playoffs is the goal. If anything, they're probably going to have to get older to make the playoffs, but I mean, that's their goal. So it's like, are they even valuing that they're the second youngest team in the league? Like, and here's the thing. If you had, you can always have, your 12th through 15th guys be like 20-year-olds that are never going to pan out in the league, but you could then sit there and say, we're so young. Like, I just feel like there's not enough context behind that whenever people want to say youngest team in the league. Like, if we had Udonis Haslem or a vet that was good for our young players as the 15th roster spot, we'd probably be the 4th youngest team in the league, but that would be a good thing for our rebuild. So, yeah, they're a young team. Like, no crap. Yes, we're a young team for sure. They're not stuck because the players will grow. Okay, nobody's saying that they can't grow into a playoff team. The problem is, can they grow into a contender Or do they even want to grow into a contender? Based off this press conference, I don't think they want to. I don't think they're prioritizing that. They talked about becoming a playoff team. Not once have I heard them say, in regards to this rebuild, that they want to build a team that can win a championship or a team that can contend for championships. So that's the problem. It's like, yeah, they can grow into a playoff team, sure. But the problem is I feel like that's kind of the end goal. They basically, I mean, it depends on how you interpret some of their statements, but to me, they basically said that today. Let me see if Eric wants to call in. Blazers just gave away Holiday 2, let him go for nothing. I mean, that part's not true. They got back the 14th pick. They got back Brogdon. They got back 2029 Boston first. And they used those assets to get Denny. Like, if you look at the Holiday trade that was then followed up by the Denny trade, I actually think the Holiday trade was a win. Because, like, in a rebuild, I probably would have traded Drew Holiday for Denny Avdija straight up. So, and obviously Avdija fits a lot better. So, the Holiday trade in isolation, I think, was okay. And then they made a good Denny trade. So, they justified the Holiday trade. I think they believe they should become a playoff team and only then try to contend. Here's the problem, though. You need to have a long-term plan to how you get to contention. You can't just say, like, okay, we're going to get to the playoffs and then figure it out. Because here's the thing. If your first goal is like, all right, we're just going to make moves to try and get to the playoffs, that's how you end up with a roster that doesn't have enough upside on it, no assets, and you have no way of taking that next step. The Blazers were a playoff team with Damian Lillard for a long time where they could not take that next step to contend because they didn't have the assets. They weren't in position to actually take that step. And if you're just focused on getting to the playoffs, that's how you get stuck in that position. Okay? And that's why I'm so annoyed with the way things are going, is because it feels like they want to get stuck in the same position that they were in with Dame. Building a winning mindset with such a young team is good. What should the Blazers be doing then? Nobody says they should lose 82 games, okay? They should have moved Grant last offseason. They should have moved Ayton, I think, if they had a chance to. They should have been playing Scoot. They should have been starting Scoot, Sharp, Kamara, Avdija, and Klingon from the get-go. They were bringing Avdija off the bench this season. They were bringing Sharp off the bench this season. They were bringing Scoot off the bench this season. So it's like building a winning mindset with a young team. Okay, but like those young players, when they have played, even without the vets, are about as good as the team is with the vets. Those guys should be getting experience. And define a winning mindset. Like, these guys aren't high schoolers. These guys aren't kids. Like, they're professionals, okay? I mean, is them playing less, coming off the bench, watching DeAndre Ayton make 5 mid-range shots to help us beat a bad team by 3, is that, like, really that important? Vegas says they've had 4 straight years in the lottery after this offseason. It's time to give these guys an opportunity. Yes, give the young players an opportunity. Abso-freaking-lutely. The problem is they don't even do that. And then when it came time to kind of clear the deck to give those young guys an opportunity at the deadline, they didn't even do that. They like, the fact that Grant is still on this team is insane. You drafted guards in back-to-back years with Scoot and Sharp, and you still have Anthony Simons on the team as the number one guy, taking the ball out of other guys' hands, playing a lot in isolation, and you still have him on the roster. Like, they're not even giving the young guys enough opportunity. mean, here's the thing. What? Do they have a winning mindset now because they finished 12th in the West? They won 35 games. They have a winning mindset now? It would have been nice if that winning mindset showed up on March 27th when they played the Sacramento Kings on the road in their biggest game of the season, a game that if they won, they would have had a legitimate chance at the play-in, but they lost by 21. So where was that winning mindset then? Them competing in the play-in or playoffs at this age gets them experience for when they're in their mid to late 20s. I don't think them losing in the play-in or early in the playoffs at 21 years old is bad. They're not even in the play-in, though. They're not in the play-in. Like, if they're not good enough to get that experience, then you're going to need a lot more talent, and being bad is a good thing. If they're not good enough to get that experience themselves to earn a play-in spot or a playoff spot through the young core as it's currently built, then it's not a bad thing that they're bad because they are going to get more talent through the draft. And here's the problem with like going for the playoffs next season is like you should if they're going to here's the thing. It shouldn't necessarily be about getting to the playoffs next season. It should be we're going to start this young core, Scoot, Sharp, Denny, Tamani, Klingon, and we're going to see how good they can be starting next season, okay? And if they make the playoffs, great, okay? These are our most important pieces, so it'd be great if we make the playoffs with those guys. But if they don't, all right, we'll have a better draft pick. We'll at least keep our draft pick. And that should be the goal. But the problem is when you start saying, like, it's playoff or bust, man, that's when you start prioritizing guys like Anthony Simon staying on the team and Grant staying on the team in front of these young guys, and you actually deprioritize the young guys if you're solely focused on trying to be the best team possible next year. Because that likely implies that you're going to keep Grant, and Chauncey is probably going to freaking start him because Chauncey loves Jeremy Grant. You're going to still start Ayton over Klingon, and there's probably going to be games where Klingon plays like 12 minutes in a game next year, and Ayton plays 36 even if his effort is poor, which probably isn't even the best thing for winning in general, but it's definitely not the best thing for the young guys. That's the thing, is this is like so much more nuanced than just like, they should try and go for it, and it would be good if they made it because experience. Like, there's so much that goes into that for better or worse. For both, better and worse. Alex Wolf says, I love that they had the balls to ask about Bert's meddling in Jody's sale date. There were some great questions from the media today, man. You guys know I don't just say that either. Like, I was happy with it. Oh, we got Eric in the call-in. I have him muted. Okay, let's do it. I just texted him and how long? Wait, hold on. Okay, what's up?
Hey, what's up?
How long have you been in here? Because I have you muted because we normally are on the Skype call, you know.
Just a few seconds.
Cool. Thoughts on the press conference and the Bert thing especially?
Well, I mean, I didn't get to listen to most of it because I was at.
Did you not hear the Bert part yet?
I had just heard everyone talking about the Bert part. I didn't actually hear what he said about it. What was his
actual answer? I mean, I don't remember like the actual answer. If somebody wants to has a transcript and can post his answer to that, please do in the chat.
Something to the effect of he knows ball and like.
They check in with him once a week for like a deep dive, and Bert Cold provides them insight and I forget what the other word he used was. I really okay. Let me see if I can find something here.
Hello, everyone. By the way,
he basically said something along the lines of like Bert Cold has a lot more experience than Chauncey or I do when asked about Bert Cold's basketball acumen.
Nice.
Like, you really have to
More
listen to that
basketball
answer.
acumen than Chauncey.
Well, like, in their roles or something, yeah. But basically, like, you know, Bert Cold in their meetings, like, says, have you thought of this? Have you thought of that? Like, provides insight and experience and on their weekly check-ins, their weekly deep dives. And here's my thing, Eric. Cronin's going to make that sound as good as possible, so it's probably even worse than that.
Right.
But it's like everything we expected. The media actually asked great questions today because he was asked about Bert Cold.
Yeah, I heard some.
Yeah. I could not believe how openly that was answered. Like, I guess credit for Cronin for being transparent. Because, like, how do you even make that sound good unless you're just not transparent? So, like, Cronin was transparent, and it's really, really bad. And it's not even to critique Cronin, it's to critique Bert Cold. Like, this is the ownership group and the meddling that we've been talking about with him. That's an issue.
Yeah, I mean, we've said that that's the issue, and, you know, going back to the Norm trade and stuff like that, I mean, how much of that was Bert's idea or Jody saying we have to do it for financial reasons or whatever, and yeah, it's I don't want to give Joe oh, here you get unlimited excuses because Bert's running the show, but at the same time, like, man, can we get new ownership or something to where this isn't an issue?
Yeah. Chauncey brought up how, like, SGA, Jokic, and Giannis weren't stars when they were drafted.
I did hear that part.
Maybe we have the next one, and then, like, Cronin brought up, like, realistic development. I mean, I thought that.
I heard him say that, like, well, we have so many players, like, basically any of them could be our star or something. Like, wow.
Yeah. They basically admitted that playoffs are a goal next year. I mean, it's everything that we've been worrying about, like, everything that we've been talking about that we have an issue with basically got confirmed with that press conference.
Yep. Yeah, the whole playoff thing. I mean, see, Cronin tried, I did hear that part. Cronin tried to say, like, oh, well, yeah, like, of course people are going to expect that, but, like, we're trying to, like, think about it long term or whatever. Like, so he's trying to set the expectations just in case they don't make the playoffs to still have, like,
Hello?
You justify bringing everyone.
You lagged for a second.
I don't.
You're fine now.
There's no way you can justify bringing the coach, the GM, like, most of the roster back on a 12-seeded team and preach that it's because you want continuity and development. Take a small jump from like 10 to 8 range, you know what I mean? Like, that has to be the bare minimum next year for any of this to make sense. And, like, you can argue what you want, like, going for the playoffs, just having that as your goal is not what it should be. We all know that. But if they don't at least accomplish that with this process next year, it's a failure. And anyone who says otherwise, I cannot agree with that.
Yeah. I hated how they started off the press conference too, like, basically acting like they accomplished something big this season with their 35 wins.
Dude, it's the 4-game win streak, magnified by 10, right? Because it was 10 out of 11, right? So it's basically that they turned that into, like, their whole basis for them having a job and their whole process and all that kind of stuff. See, it's working and all this stuff.
Yep.
When, like, in reality, I mean, you could argue that was just a lucky streak, and yeah, like, I mean, you've got to give them some credit for winning 14 games more than last year, but This is the easy part. You can't take credit and do a whole victory lap over the easy part being accomplished when you now have the hardest part to do. And you're talking about not like he contradicts himself when like, oh, we have plenty of talent here, and then he says, oh, we got to keep adding talent for that to be a reality and stuff like that. It's like, well, you didn't make any moves. Like, how are you going to add talent without making moves? And you're up against the cap again, or the tax again, and all that kind of stuff. Like, how are you gonna make the moves to add talent? I don't get it, man. But
here's the other thing, dude. Like, outside of that 11-game stretch, before that they were awful. They were like last year. After that, I don't even think they were good. They're 12-17 after that, and none of those 12 wins came against a team above 500 with their best player. Like, only 2 of those wins came against an above 500 team. So we're talking about a 2-month stretch after this 11-game streak. Because the 11-game streak, the final game was February 4th, okay? Or February 6th. So starting February 8th, they played so many teams. They have so many, like, double-digit losses against teams that were above 500 but missing their best player or missing multiple starters. OKC was missing their entire starting lineup, right? They have multiple bad losses like that. And their wins are against the following teams: Charlotte, Utah, Washington, Brooklyn, Philadelphia, Toronto, Washington, Memphis at home without Ja Morant, Denver at home without Nikola Jokic, Atlanta, Toronto, and San Antonio. Those are their 12 wins since that 11-game stretch. Those are their 12 wins. That's not that impressive. It's basically this 11-game stretch is like just completely what it is in terms of their extensions and like this is why we're successful in that. And all, it's frustrating.
Did you see the Tom Haberstroh tweet?
No.
He put like rating first 41 games versus second 41 games and said that the Blazers were the most improved team in the league and they absolutely deserved to be rewarded for that. And so that's how they're playing it. They believe they took the biggest jump in the league this last half of the season and that they're going to be rearing to go next year. I don't want to hear any of this, like, oh, we're still a young rebuilding team and all this kind of crap this offseason.
Yeah.
Like, you got to get it done. You got to make smart moves that continue that process if that's what you feel. And but it really felt to me like they're going to run it back. Yeah. Like it really feels like a run it back summer again, and they're gonna kick the can down the road yet again, right?
Yeah. I mean, they were not. I don't think they were good since the day of the trade deadline. I really don't think they were good down the stretch. They were a below 500 team against one of the easiest schedules in the league, considering who they played and who was out.
Yeah.
They lose to Minnesota without Anthony Edwards and without Julius Randle and without somebody else important, I forget. They lose to the Lakers at home without Luka. They lose to the Cavs on the road without Mitchell. Still a tough game. Okay, whatever. They lose to Boston without Tatum, Drew, and Porzingis. They lose to OKC minus their entire starting 5. They lose to New York at home without Jalen Brunson. They lose to Boston at home without Jaylen Brown, Drew Holiday, and Kristaps Porzingis. They lose at home to Cleveland without Donovan Mitchell. They play their most important game of the season on the road at Sacramento. They lose by 21, give up 81% from 2, highest mark in the league. They lose on the road to New York without Jalen Brunson. Like,
the defense, man, they finally made it. They made it.
But they shut down the Hornets. They shut down the Jazz. They shut down the Nets. They shut down the tanking Sixers. Like they shut down the Raptors and the Wizards.
No, man, Chauncey finally put a stamp on the team. No one wants to play them. They're completely scrappy. You didn't hear that? Their defense is locked in, man.
This is like one 11-game stretch, literally like holding up the entire season. The thing is, during that 11-game stretch, they only had 2 wins against teams above 500 with their best player.
Yeah.
They only had if Orlando loses during that stretch, they only had 2 wins against above 500 teams. 8 of them were against below 500 teams. Chicago, Miami, Orlando, Charlotte, Phoenix twice.
Well, you shouldn't be pumping
Sacramento.
up 2 wins versus Orlando anyway.
Yeah. Like, yeah. Exactly.
And I really wish
It was
I was
better.
wrong about this, but
It was better. Like, I want to say this real quick. It was definitely better, but it was not enough to act like you accomplished something big or this team is like, took such a giant leap and is most improved team in the league and this and that.
right.
Like, that's the thing. They're over-exaggerating it.
But we knew that. I mean, we've been saying this for weeks. Like they were going to get the credit for this jump, and they were going to get rewarded for it, and they were both going to get rewarded, and they were joined at the hip. And like or like some people tried to push back against that, but like it was pretty obvious that this was going to be the way they approached it and the way they justified it and all that kind of stuff. Like you could have written this script weeks ago, right? And so, like, they don't really, it doesn't feel like they care about winning a championship. They just care about being good enough to be interesting or whatever. So, hopefully they get that. Hopefully they're at least that.
Yep. All right, man. We'll talk on the post-game show in
absolutely.
3 hours. So, I'm gonna do picks here. You drive safe. I assume you're driving? I heard a call.
Yeah. All right, I'll talk to you later. Bye, everyone.
Sounds good, man.
Good to check in.
Yep, good to hear from you. Alrighty, we're gonna pick 8 more games and do double downs for picks against the spread and all that. Right now, if we have a mod in chat that can provide the picks, I would greatly appreciate it. We're gonna be live with the postgame show later tonight. I gotta do a better job reading off donations. Shout out to Brandon Lee, $2 donation, says F this organization. Sorry, I'm 2 hours late on that. We'll get better in the off-season reading off donos. Shout out to Elias, $5 donation with a sad gaming controller emoji with his arm in a sling. Thank you, Elias. Appreciate your guys' donations, man. Alrighty. We'll jump into picks against the spread to end off the stream. We picked 7 games earlier today. We got 8 more to pick today. Once again, here are the standings. If you're new to this, this is the last day of the picks against the spread for the year. We pick the day's games. We have our moderators, social media team, and even chat participating. Chat won it last year. $200 on the line for Javon, or $200 in giveaways on the line for chat. That is what we're picking these games for. We're picking spread lines. The next game we have to pick, these are the 8 games tipping off at 12:40. Nice little calm way to end this stream. Calm music. It's a vibe. We got the Denver Nuggets on the road facing the Houston Rockets. Denver 7.5 point road favorite. Injuries for this game. Let me find this game. All right, out for the Nuggets, Deron Holmes. Out for the Rockets, Jayshawn Tate and Jabari Smith. So probably the lightest injury report of the day for these games about to tip off. Of course, we'll pick the Blazers spread as well. All right. Oh, Wyatt's in here. I love it. If I'm gonna ban you if you can't say my name right, man. Come on, man. Don't call me Corey, man. I'll call you Hyatt. Alright. Alright. Brendan going Rockets. If we can get moderator, is Javon around? Let me make this a Rockets logo. The good news is we don't have to rush these picks because we got 30 minutes to make them. I can still read off chat, read off your thoughts about Chauncey and all that good stuff as we go along here. Like the Hyatt Hotel, that'll work. All right. All right. So we got Brendan going Rockets. Let me... Alright. I think I'm going to go with the... I'm going to go with the Rockets as well. I've watched over 65 games this year. Congrats, man. Congrats. I've watched a few more. We're talking about the Blazers or Mariners right now. Same damn philosophy on team building. Just be good enough to sell tickets, but not good enough to win a title. Yep. I mean, there's definitely some similarities there. We got Jackson and Trevin going Rockets. Damani, it's good to see you, man. Good to see you in the chat. I'm glad this team can rile you up enough to see you in the chat once in a while. Alrighty. They were saying you were a box score watcher, like they know what you do. I mean, I'm sure you've watched games. I'll just say this. If somebody wants to defend Chauncey, can you come up with an X's and O's thing to defend him with? It's my only request. Like, is it possible? I don't know if it's possible. I haven't seen it. All right, we got, for the Nuggets, we got Crushables, Eric. Zach, Arrow, Steven, and 503. Let me know if the background music's too loud. What is Javon going with, man? Let me text my guy, Javon. His pick and roll defense is excruciating. Yeah, and his offense is too. Oh, we got Denver for Javon. Cool. And we got Denver for chat as well. As Javon tries to catch chat. We'll take a look at the updated standings. All right. We'll take a look at the updated standings for the first 7 games after we're done with this. We got an 8v5 in favor of the Denver Nuggets over the Houston Rockets. Game number 9 of 15. We got the Memphis Grizzlies hosting the Dallas Mavericks. Dallas 2.5-point road favorite. Injuries for this game out for the Mavs: Olivier Maxence, Prosper, Kyrie, Irving, PJ Washington, Derek Lively, Klay Thompson, and Anthony Davis. Out for the Grizzlies: Jalen Wells, Zion Poland, Brandon Clark, Jaren Jackson Jr., Zach Edey, Desmond Bain, John Morant, Santi Aldama, Luke Kennard, and Scottie Pippen Jr. Chat, your poll is live. I'm loving how Ime Udoka is over in Houston cooking. Yeah, man, he's been very good for them. If Burt Cold and Jody Allen owned that team, Kevin McHale would still be head coach. Javon is going with the Mavs. We got Grizzlies for Brendan. I think I'm going to go with the Grizzlies. I'll go with the home team. Getting the points. All right, next game, Minnesota, Utah. We got Mavs for Connor. Kevin McHale. Yeah, man. And McHale would be sitting there saying, I still think I have a lot of potential and I'm improving year by year. Grizzlies, we got Crush, Arrow, Steven, and 503. Josh said everybody got a target on their back. He's gonna launch missiles next game. At the Hoop Summit, man, I saw 2 people do the grenade thing that Ja does. It was funny. AJ DeBonsa did it, and then Yusefu, who was really impressive at the hoop summit. I like Yusufu, man. He's going to Baylor. All right, we got Mavs for Jackson, Trevin, Eric, Zach. And chat is going Grizzlies, 86% of the vote. Making this a split vote, 7v6 in favor of the Memphis Grizzlies. In game number 10, we got the Minnesota Timberwolves hosting the Utah Jazz. The biggest spread line of the season, as the Timberwolves are 23-point home favorites. 23.5 points. 23.5 points. That's crazy, man. Out for the Jazz, Cody Williams, KJ Martin, Larry Markkinen, Walker Kessler, Taylor Hendricks, Elijah Harkless, John Collins, Jordan Clarkson, Isaiah Collier. The Wolves have nobody on the injury report. They are healthy. Now, who knows how long they stick with their guys? They have to win this game. But will they go hard enough to win by 24 or more? That's the question. That is the question. Josh said the Grizzlies record is his candy. All right. And then Brendan, next game, if you want to like prep the comments, is New Orleans OKC. I thought Edwards was supposed to be suspended. Is he not? He got his technical rescinded, so he's not suspended. But I think next technical he gets suspended in the playoffs, if I understand it correctly. So maybe it would have been better for him to have been suspended, because they probably still would have won this game. I really don't know what to do here, man. This is an insane spread line. By the way, if you're picking Timberwolves, it's because you think they win by 24 or more. If the Timberwolves win by 23 points, Jazz is the correct pick, chat. In case you're new to spread lines. I love how I have a Nuggets logo behind. Wrong logo. Alright, we got Jazz for Connor. I do not know. There's a lot of blowouts on Friday. A lot of the favorites covered some giant spreads. Can we get a chat double down on a 23.5 point spread line? Wolves for Brendan, Jackson, Trev, and Eric Arrow. Plot twist, Ant Edwards gets his technical in this game and then suspended for playing. It'll be fun to preview the Western Conference matchups on the post-game show too. And the Eastern Conference matchups, I guess. At least the two that'll be set. And the playing games. We got Jazz for Crushable, Zach, Steven 503. I have to make a decision. I am very indecisive on this game. I'll go Timberwolves. Alright, we had Zach going Jazz. We have chat going Timberwolves. 88% of the vote, so this might end up being their double down on this giant spread. We do have a split vote. 7v6 in favor of the Timberwolves. Game number 11, we got the New Orleans Pelicans hosting the OKC Thunder. OKC is a 13.5 point road favorite. Out for the Thunder, Cason Wallace, Nikola Topic, Chet Holmgren, Isaiah Hartenstein, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Lou Dort, Jalen Williams, the All-Star version, Cason Wallace again, Ousmane Dieng, and Alex Caruso. Out for the Pelicans, Zion Williamson, DeJounte Murray, Trey Murphy, CJ McCollum, Herb Jones, Brandon Boston, Bruce Brown, Jordan Hawkins, Kelly Olynyk, Yves Missi, and Carlo Matkovic. I should just read these off as fast as I can. Yeah, not the triple-double machine version, Jalen Williams, the All-Star version. I would love to have one good Jalen Williams on this team, let alone two. Imagine how many charges we'd have if we had Jalen the big man Jalen Williams. He takes a ton of charges. Him and Tumani. So who do they have? Isaiah Joe, Aaron Wiggins. I'll just take the Pelicans. They're at home. Final game of the year. They're locked in. We got Thunder for Brendan Jackson, Trevin Crush. By the way, next game is Raptors Spurs, Brendan. Appreciate it. All right. We also got Arrow Steven 503. Connor's also going Thunder. Got Pelicans for Eric and Zach. And Javon is going with the Thunder. And chat is going with the Thunder, 100% of the vote. Chat going heavy with the favorites right now, man. We'll see if it works out for them. Might be helpful to start listening who's available instead of who's injured. It's going to be like the same thing either way. We got a 10v3 in favor of the Thunder. Next game, the San Antonio Spurs are hosting the Toronto Raptors. The Spurs 4.5 point home favorites. All right, you ready? Out for the Raptors. Jacoby Walter, Jakob Poeltl, Brandon Ingram. Yeah, I already messed up. Jacoby Walter, Jakob Poeltl, Brandon Ingram, Grady Dick, Ulrich Chauncey, RJ Barrett, Emmanuel Quickly, Jared Roden. Out for the Spurs. De'Aaron Fox, Riley Minix, Victor Wembanyama, Jeremy Sohan, Devin Vassell. That was okay. I think I can do better, though. All right, on the Spurs train, we have Jackson, Trevin, Crush, Zach, Arrow, Steven, and Brendan. Raptors are Eric and 503. And chat is going Spurs, 57% of the vote. 11v2 in favor of the Spurs. All right, next game. We have the Golden State Warriors hosting the Los Angeles Clippers. The Warriors are 3.5 point home favorites. This game is a big game in terms of Western Conference seeding. I believe the loser will be in the play-in and the winner will be the 6th seed. Chat, correct me if I'm wrong. All right, chat, there's your poll. Out for the Clippers, Patty Mills, Seth Lundy, Amir Coffey, Nicholas Batum. Out for the Warriors is absolutely nobody. Next game is the Blazer game, Brendan. And then we'll have the other game we haven't picked, whichever game that is. All right, we got Clippers for Javon. I got the Warriors. These teams are 5 and 6 right now, so I think they can stay that way if the Timberwolves miraculously lose. Yeah, I don't really know the playoff scenarios, to be honest. You guys gonna be sad for this music to go away? For those of you that do picks. It's always kind of a sad day. Last day of picks, last game. We got Warriors for Jackson, Crush, Eric, Arrow, Zach, 503 Brendan. I'm over here killing this lottery sim on Tankathon. Yeah, maybe we'll do a tank. I don't have a Tankathon sim set up. I'll do one to end the stream and let you guys know what we get. We got Clippers for Trevin and Steven. Just wait till you see this spread line for this next game, though. It's worrying me a little bit. We had Arrow go Warriors, and we had Connor go with the Warriors as well. Chat is going with the Warriors, 82% of the vote. Game number 14. We have your Portland Trail Blazers hosting the Los Angeles Lakers. The Blazers are 6.5-point home favorites. Why the hell the Blazers are favorited? I have no idea. Well, it's because of the injury report. This is the injury report. All right. Out for the Lakers, Maxi Kleber, Rui Hachimura, Austin Reeves, Luka Doncic, LeBron James, and Dorian Finney-Smith. Out for the Blazers, Robert Williams III, Anthony Simons, Bryce McGowan, Scoot Henderson, Jeremy Grant, DeAndre Ayton, Denny Avdia, and Shane Sharp. But you got Tamani Kamara playing. He might be the best player on the floor. If the Blazers win this game, as long as the Suns also win, the Blazers will be fine. The Suns game is the last game, by the way. I just remembered. I think the Blazers are going to try and lose because Chauncey is in lockstep with the tank and the long-term vision, considering he isn't going anywhere. He's not going anywhere. So I think the Blazers are going to tank the hell out of this game and lose to the Lakers. No way we're winning if Tamani is our best player. Okay, who's the Lakers' best player today, Connor? That's the question, man. That is the question. Jackson Hayes? All right, we got Connor going Lakers, Javon going Lakers. Bronny. Oh, we get Bronny minutes today. Let's go, Bronny, man. We're rooting for Bronny today. Bronny and Gabe Vincent, man. Can Bronny score against Tamani? Is Luka out? Yeah, he is. So is Finney-Smith. So is Reeves. So is Rui Hachimura. So is Maxi Kleber. I'm rooting for Bronny. Y'all might want to hate, but I want him to do well. I want him to do well as well. You know, I mean, I'm never going to root for a Laker, but I think he's got too much hate, man. Like, I had him low 50s on my big board. Like, I think he was definitely draftable, even if he wasn't LeBron's son. All right. Blazers for Jackson and Zach. To Bronny Kamames. I don't know what that means. Lakers for, oh, it's up there. Trevin, Crush, Eric, Arrow. I'm picking a lot of road teams today. Trevin, Crush, Eric, Arrow. The real OGs know who Damani is, too. The real OGs. The day ones, so to say. All right, we got Stephen 503, Brendan, also Lakers. So here we go. Chat is going to go Lakers. And then we'll pick our double down. So this is going to be 11-2 in favor of the Los Angeles Lakers. Oh, no, we got one more game left to pick. We got the Kings hosting the Suns. The Kings 14.5-point home favorites, which is why it's important that the Blazers lose today. It's very important that the Blazers lose today. Out for the Suns, Nick Richards, Kevin Durant, Bradley Beal, Devin Booker. Out for the Kings, Malik Monk and Jake LaRavia. And that is our final injury report of the season. I'm at the game right now. Lots of Lakers fans. Bronny putting up 20 points and embarrassing the Blazers after that terrible Chauncey extension. That would be such a fitting end to the season, man. It really would. It really, really would be. All right, I'm just going Kings. Suns sold my island last stream, so I want to end off picks not picking the Suns. Just as a statement. Connor's going Suns. We got Kings for Jackson, Trevin, Crush, Eric. Zach, 503, Brendan. Do you guys still get sad when the season ends? Because I still get sad when the season ends, not going to lie. But it's kind of just like, post-game shows being over, even though it's like, it'll be easier for me to not have to do like 4 post-game shows a week. Some in the middle of my evenings. Like, it is easier on me, but I'm still sad about it, to be honest. It's always like a goodbye for like... It's like a goodbye. The last post-game show is like a goodbye, and then we stream the next day. And we still stream all off season. I don't know why it feels like that. We got Suns for Arrow and Steven. And chat is going to go Kings. Chat just going all favorites today. Maybe it's because we're on the main channel. This is the thing. Chat has to build enough of a lead during the season on the second channel where we normally do this to withstand the last day chaos where we got more votes, man, because we're on the main channel over here. We got a 10v3 in favor of the Kings. All right, time for double downs. I'm doubling down on the Golden State Warriors again. Javon went Suns, by the way. Whoops, my bad. Let me fix that. It's a 9v4 in favor... Whoops, wrong person. 9v4 in favor of the Kings. I went Suns. Brendan, if you could just post the double downs in chat, I'd greatly appreciate that. Javon, Connor, let me know who your double downs are, and we'll be done with picks against the spread for the season. We'll take a look at the standings, and then the Blazers tip off here in about 5 minutes. Actually, I'll grab Stevens in 503s, Brendan. We got Pistons for Steven. We got Heat for 503. We got Lakers for Connor. He's going with his Los Angeles Lakers. We got Javon going with his Lakers as well. Did the Hornets cover? I have no idea. I've been busy, so to say. Eric, what's your double down? All right, we got Jackson going Pistons. Brendan just posted it, so it's fine. I got it. Jackson, Pistons. We got Trevin going with the Bulls. The ones for the earlier games were picked before those games, so it's fine. We had Crush go Pacers. Eric went Hornets earlier. His Hornets Island, which he won, I guess. What a great way to end the season, Eric. Winning an island, a double down island. Yeah, Eric switched his double down to the Hornets. So if you don't know what an island means, chat, means you're the only person to pick that team, which with 13 people, essentially, it's tough to do. It's tough to do. Zach going out strong with the Blazers to end the year. Aeromancer going with the Suns, and Brendan going with the Magic. What was chat's? I think we just take the biggest percentage out of the latest polls. I don't think anything came close to that. Oh, they 12 votes all on the Thunder, so they will be the OKC Thunder. 100% of the vote. Cool. So you got 2 on the Lakers, Connor and Javon. And you have, is everybody else on their own here? No, you got 2 on the Pistons. You got Jackson and Steven. Beyond that, everybody else is on their own. I'm going Warriors. Eric went Hornets Island in 1. Trevin, Bulls, Zach, Blazers, Arrow, Suns, Crushables, Pacers. 503 went Heat. Brendan went Magic, and chat. 100% of 12 votes went Thunder, and that concludes picks against the spread. Thank you for participating all season long, and we ended it at the end of the music. That was perfect timing. Beautiful scenes, man. The Blazers tip off here in a couple minutes. Final game of the regular season. We're going to have you covered with the post-game show after the game. We'll talk a little bit more about the press conference. We're going to recap the season. We're going to do we're going to talk a ton with chat, man. It's a day for you guys. We appreciate you guys all season long tuning in to the channel. So we're going to show our appreciation, and we're going to have 3 live streams at least next week. 2 episodes of Blazers Uprise Live, 1 episode of Blazing Trails. That's my podcast with Stephen Vaughn. We're going to do that live this offseason, so that should be fun. We'll get Steven's thoughts. I think Steven is more okay with this hiring, and I need to he hasn't talked to me on air in a while, so I need to make my voice heard and just see what he thinks. It's always fun doing stuff with Steven. Yeah, and hopefully the Lakers beat the Blazers today, man. That's like the only time I'll say it. Hopefully the Blazers at least get 9th best odds. One final tankathon. One final tankathon before we end the stream. Here's what we got. At 14, Dallas. At 13, Atlanta. At 12, Chicago. At 11, Miami. At 10, Houston via Phoenix. At 9 is your Portland Trailblazers. 8, Brooklyn. 7, OKC via Philadelphia. 6, New Orleans. 5 is Utah. 4 is Toronto. 3 is San Antonio. 2 is Charlotte, which means the number 1 overall pick goes to the Washington Wizards. Boring little sim to end it off here. And yeah, the Blazers just had one doozy. I don't use that word, but I think that's a good word to describe their press conference that they had today. And Chauncey is back forever. And Cronin too. Those two are conjoined at the hip. You know, people want to say Chauncey's a Olshey guy. Nah. Chauncey is a Cronin guy. And Cronin and Chauncey are Burt Cold guys. Anyway, thank you for joining the stream. Thank you for making your voices heard in the chat. We appreciate you. Shout out to Raytex for calling in. We're out of here. Catch you after the game. We'll see what the Blazers do today. Go Brawny. Until next time, as always, peace out. Go Blazers. Just not today.